overtime goal, Sebastian Aho on a just maybe one of the sweetest redirects that you'll ever
But
see in a hockey game off of the
yeah,
Slavin shot.
but what about this?
Carolina closing out Nashville. Good on Nashville, but speaking of horses, I got to think David Poyle's got a pretty long face today.
Well, look, it's been a disastrous year for Nashville, where midway through the season they were a disaster, with Duchesne struggling, Johansson struggling, all kinds of talk of Ekholm being traded. It was on and on and on what was going on in Nashville. Then they get it together late in the season and get in the playoffs. Saros really has been a stalwart for them. I mean, this guy was exceptional. So they make it and everything, at least they battled in the first round. Carolina, to me, is a better team, but Nashville put up a great fight. They really did. And Saros was a big part of that. Let's not kid ourselves.
A huge one.
Yeah.
A huge one. Mac, did Saros cover up still a lineup that just can't get it done? I look, Mac, and you know what scares me about Nashville the most is the fact that they pushed Carolina hard, but it wasn't led by Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchesne. Those guys are the two highest paid guys. It's kind of scary a little bit when you consider Saros is a great point, Mac, but I think he was so good that he really covered up a lineup that's not good enough. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. A forward group that isn't good enough, because we know they're still led on that blue line with Yossi, Ellis, and Ekholm. But what I worry about, Mac, is I watch Nashville, and they're not led necessarily by Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchesne, who are their two highest paid players who still have 4 and 5 years respectively at $8 million. These guys are barely playing 15 minutes a night here, Mac. How does David Poile move this needle when your go-to guys, your two highest paid guys, aren't leading the way?
Well, look, it starts with the desire. David Poile has always had a history of wanting to make the big trades, and it started with the Johansson trade. I mean, when you trade Johansson for, the big horse on the back end, Jones, and it has been a disastrous trade for them. And I know they had an overabundance of defensemen when they moved Seth Jones, but it still has not worked out. Johansson has not been the guy he was supposed to be, from being a 30-goal scorer in Columbus. Looked like, I remember when we were there for the All-Star game in Columbus, Nick, a number of years ago, he looked like he was going to become a superstar, this guy in the league. 30 goals, big horse down the middle. Everybody dreamt of having that type of guy. It hasn't worked out. Duchesne, contract has not worked out. He's lucky he was able to get rid of the tourist deal. So it's been a combination of bad contracts and bad deals, and it hasn't helped when your top guys are perceived as way overpaid and paid too much of a price to acquire, in particular, Johansson. So it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good for David Poile. And, you go back and you think of the Weber deal for Subban, and on and on. It has not worked out well for David on a number of fronts, not to mention coaching changes.
You could open up your door and get a bigger, stronger horse than Ryan Johansson right now in your parking lot.
I mean, I don't know what has happened to this guy, but, 8th overall pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and looked like he was going to be a player, but it's just not. It just hasn't happened for whatever reason. Is it head? Is it motivation? Is it, what is it that's caused this? And then, Duchesne, some people think he's more interested in country music than he is in playing hockey. So it's not pretty. It's not pretty there right now for me. And although, full marks, Saros made them look like they are a competitive group, and they did. It was a battle. It was a battle, this series. This was not. I didn't perceive this series as being a tough one for Carolina, and it was a tough one for Carolina to win it.
And they at times, Mac, struggled with some consistency in their game. There were lulls, but this roster is so deep on Carolina that it just found a way. I'm watching Doug Hamilton, Mac, and I cannot believe that that's the same guy that left the Boston Bruins, that was playing in Calgary, and now you watch him, games on the line. What a spectacular play to come off the blue line and score the game-tying goal. That goal, to me, was a big-time play by a big-time player.
Well, you think back to the Kessel deal, and you think of, what Boston Bruins got in that deal. And all of a sudden, Hamilton has moved. Why? Moved to Calgary. Moved a star in Calgary. Moved from Calgary. Now, again, he's an unrestricted free agent for obviously the first time in his career. And where will he end up? This guy has been nothing short of spectacular for the last couple of years. And he has been good every place he's been. But for whatever reason,
well, we know the reasons.
Wanted to move him.
Mac, we talked about it. The perception was that he was a bit of an oddball in Calgary.
Right. A very intelligent kid who at times hasn't fit in. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know how he's fitting in Carolina. And if I'm the manager of the Carolina Hurricanes or the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, I don't care. All I know is what he does on the ice, and he's damn good. And where does he go this summer? Are they going to be able to re-sign him? I don't know. But whoever gets him is going to get a hell of a player in the prime of his career.
This one's going to get trickier as Carolina advances. Mac, the last I had heard on his contract situation in Carolina is that they weren't budging much past $7.5 million per year for Hamilton. That's the one that they're
going to have their hands
owner
full
would
sign
like.
Then the owner may have to move unless he doesn't care. And then he's got Jake Gardner to back him up next year. Good luck on that one.
I don't think it's going to be hard.
Or Shea. Shea is there too.
It won't be very hard for Dougie Hamilton to improve that $7.5 million
on the free market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And overtime goal, Sebastian Aho on maybe one of the sweetest redirects that you'll ever see in a hockey game off of a Slavin shot.
But what about this? Aho wins the draw. McGinn makes the play to push it. It looked like he pushed it back to the point. How many key goals did McGinn score in this playoff series? I mean, this is a guy that's not perceived as a goal scorer, but a hard-nosed battler. And he makes, again, another big play on a goal. And Aho, who, we remember Montreal making the offer sheet on him. We're thinking, wow, that's a pretty big offer. But this guy's a hell of a player. He is a hell of a player. And they had some lesser guys. The guy that starts with N, what the hell's his name? He made some big plays in this series, too.
Natchez.
Yeah, Natchez. Yeah, okay. Household name.
I look at Mac, and you just mentioned it, but I look at Fogle, McGinn, and Martinook.
Yeah.
And those are terrific foot soldiers for Rod Brind'Amour. And when you think about now going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, those guys could go head to head, I think, with the Colemans of the world and the Goudreaus.
Yeah, and that's going to be look. The skill is going to be a big part of this next series. I'm excited to watch this series. Tampa were in and out in the Florida series. They were hot and cold. They're going to have to play a lot better.